Right, straight down. Last guy on the table. Thank you. Does he want something to eat? Does he want something to eat?
L'chaim, l'chaim. back on. One more. Now, one more.
You gotta learn. All right, let's see who our sponsors tonight.
Oh, we got a lot of sponsors.
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. You turn on the heat. You turn on the heat.
Laid down the law. Laid down the law.
Keep up. That's what everyone needs.
All right, tonight's sponsors. We got lots of them. Akiva Lawrence, in honor of his father's upcoming 75th birthday.
Oh, Mazel Tov, Mazel
And
Tov.
the safe and swift return of our brothers and sisters in captivity.
Amen.
Yehuda and Sarah Roll, Lila Nishmas, Yehuda's grandfather, Reuben Eliyahu ben Michal, who's a lion Kavura, was today.
Sham Shavin Ali. Shkoyach Yehuda.
Matt and Susie Schoenfeld. Susie there twice. Matt and Susie Schoenfeld, for Rifur Shalema, for Tzvi Meir Levi ben Saraleah, Yocheved ben Sarayeta, Hershel Yisrael ben Pescha Yentl Rezel, and Meir Avram ben Tegi, Rifur Shalema. Eliyahu Ramenfar, for the safety of all the IDF soldiers, for the safe return of all the hostages, and honor of Rabbi Silber for his daily chizuk and life lessons given over in Daf. Jeremy Lassen, in honor of Rabbi Silber's hustle.
No, I think it was Steve Galasko's
I saw
hustle.
the yes, I got
Steve
it.
Galasko's hustle, yeah. I read it.
Nelly because he's a great guy.
Oh,
That was mine, not his. Oh, he's not that high on himself.
So shkoyach. And also again, we thank the Tilsim Mishpacha of Eretz Yisrael who dedicated all of the shiurim and drashos for this year for Tafshin Pei Hey in the Schus of Besoros Tavos Klal Yisrael. We should
Covers this year too.
covers everything. Baruch Hashem.
It would have been.
And we should just dedicate our learning in Meretz Hashem in the schus of our precious hostages. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring them home, Shalom and Bekarov. In the schus of our holy soldiers, may HaKadosh Baruch Hu allow them to be successful b'chol ma'aseh yedeihem. And of course, a tremendous thank you to Reb Tzvi for the beautiful,
Yaakov Bernstein.
and Yaakov Bernstein. Shkoyach. If you could fry it, they could make it. So this is mamish like this is that's our motto. That's our motto. So, Shkoyach, absolutely beautiful, and thank you to Reb Steve. You should just know, again, really tremendous appreciation to Reb Steve for always making sure that Baruch Hashem, the shir is well appointed, well sponsored. And Shkoyach to all of our sponsors. It's always so beautiful. And but with that, let's continue. So we had a sheets. Here. Plenty here. Really, note here. You can take more if you need. I'm just going to keep one. All right, so we're continuing in Meretz Hashem tonight. We're continuing in Meretz Hashem tonight in Tzav Zeruz. We're actually skipping a little bit because in Tzav Zeruz there were different sections. I want to skip a little bit now tonight to section Lamed Vav. So you'll see again it's page Shin Ayin Tes. So again, if you're following along in the Sefer, we skipped a couple of pages. The pages that we skipped, not Chasam. There's nothing unimportant in the words of the Rebbe. The pages that we skipped were things that were more I would call like in the category of tfilos than in the category per se of, let's say, the Rebbe's hashkafas or philosophy. So we're skipping a little bit to Lamed Vav, which really goes back a little bit more to much more of the Rebbe's philosophy, much more of the Rebbe's insights. So let's begin. So I'll say this is a beautiful piece, and I think so profoundly important and connected to what we do here on every Thursday night. So the Rebbe writes as follows: "Says Adam tzarich lasos sulamos la'alos al yidehem lepamim hashamayma." So we'll say this to me is one of the most profound pieces of the Piagetz. So literally translated, the Rebbe says that at times a person has to make a ladder. Page section Lamed Vav. A person has to make a ladder. Let's translate, and then we'll understand what the Rebbe is saying. At times, he says, a person has to make ladders in order to be able to ascend to Shamayim. Now, what does that mean? So I'll say it's very interesting because, remember, we have ladder metaphor in Chumash, right? We find ladder metaphor where? By Yaakov Avinu, right? Yaakov Avinu has a dream. And remember, again, his dream is, V'hinei Sula Mutzav Arza, V'rosha Magia Shamayma. There's a dream, right? And the dream, the base of the ladder is on the earth, the top of the ladder is in the heavens. U'malachei Elokim Olim V'yardim Bo. Angels are going up and down the ladder. So what's interesting is as follows. So Lubavitcher Rebbe, Zechasad Kol Shavracha, discusses why a ladder, right? Why not a stairway to heaven, right? Why a ladder to heaven, right? What's the pshat, right? Right? Why dafka ladder? So the Rebbe says something very beautiful. The Rebbe says that the ladder was purposely chosen because a ladder is one of those things that you can't really scale at once. right? Stairs, you could scale a couple of stairs once. You could take, depending on how young and agile you are, right? You could take 2, 3 stairs at a time. I know some of us are thinking, 2 stairs at a time. Maybe if I get up 1 set of stairs without panting, Baruch Hashem. But, again, stairs, you could take a couple of them at a time. A ladder is really one rung at a time. So the Rebbe says, the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, that Yaakov Avinu Dafka dreamt about the ladder because this was to create a model for spiritual growth. Spiritual growth has to be in stages and incremental. I'll say, I think, many of us have experienced this in our Ruchnius life, where we have a moment of inspiration, and what happens in that moment of inspiration? What happens? You take on everything, right? Everything. I'm sorry? Flip out, right? No, you take on everything, right? In that moment, I'm hungry, I'm excited, it's this. I'm literally doing everything from like Yashin to Tikkun Chatzos, right? And everything in between, right? There's no thing that I can't do. And what ends up happening, right? 2 hours later, right? I'm burnt out. It's done. And then the truth is, then there's this incredible feeling of yeush, right? This incredible feeling of despair that sets in when, I feel that I failed. I really didn't fail. I just took on too much. But I feel like a failure, and kind of everything peters out. So that's why the Rebbe says that Yaakov Avinu Dafka dreamt about a ladder, because that's the way to engage in spiritual growth. It's important to understand this dynamic. Why is it that in Ruchnius we go from 0 to 60, right? This is like human nature. For some reason in spirituality, we go from 0 to 60. So what's the pshat? So we'll say it comes from a very holy place. See, when a person has a moment of inspiration, so we'll say what happens in a moment of inspiration, what occurs? So a person has this incredible awakening to the fact that there are many inconsistencies that exist in my life, right? Many inconsistencies. So what ends up happening? So I have this acute desire to remedy my inconsistencies. I have an acute desire to fix all the stuff that's wrong, because how could I live with inconsistencies? How could I do that? So there is this mindset that I just have to fix everything now. But the truth is, part of mature spirituality says that you have to learn to live with inconsistencies. All of us have inconsistencies, and part of spiritual maturation is a recognition, I can't fix every problem now. Which means I'm going to work on stuff, but as I'm working on stuff, there are going to be glaring inconsistencies in my life. And my avod is just to remember that they're inconsistent, and I have to reconcile them, and not to go ahead and try to justify them. But I have to learn to live. It sounds strange, but part of spiritual growth is living with inconsistency while I'm on the journey to self-actualization. And says Lubavitcher Rebbe, that's the whole yisod. That's the whole yisod of a ladder. A ladder says, you take one rung. Here's the problem. I climb one rung. Here's the problem. I see all the rungs ahead of me, right? I know all the things that I have to do to get my life in order, right? But what? I have to look at those rungs. No, I'm not there yet. But I'm focusing on the rung. And I will say, this is true and everywhere, right? A person starts out in their career, right? And what happens? A person starts out in their career, and young chevra, this is very important for you guys to listen to, right? A person starts out in their career, and what happens? Everybody wants to be an overnight success, right? Everyone knows that guy who made a ton of money doing very little work, and I'm that next guy. I'm that guy. So it's important to remember there's only one of those guys, right? One for every whatever, one for every 1,000 people, right? And understand, sometimes even when it looks like people just stumbled into stuff, there's a lot of work. And there's a lot of steps. And a lot of those rungs are very unglorious. And a lot of those rungs are very tedious. But you have to take them nevertheless. That, says the Lubavitcher Rebbe, is the entire yisod of ladder ruchnius. Ladder spirituality is one rung at a time, recognizing there's a whole bunch of stuff in my life that's in a state of disrepair, but I'm taking it one step at a time. Get ready for this. The Piazetzna, Zechet Tzadik v'Kadosh Levracha, Zechusa Yogin Alinu. The Piazetzna uses the ladder metaphor in the exact opposite way. Right? And we'll say this is why in life it's important to have multiple rebbes, because again, you can't be a one chassid rebbe. You can't, because every rebbe has a different mahalach, has a different derech. Somebody reached out to me about this who was struggling with which segment of Yiddishkeit to fit into. How do I identify? But it sounds wrong. It sounds wrong in 2024, right? Hopefully, it might be coming to an end. That era, right. But Lamaisa, right? But the person was asking, like, how do I choose? I said to the person is, who says you have to choose? Who says you have to choose? Who says that you have to sign up for a label? Who says that? Right? In other words, imagine what Klal Yisrael would look like if everybody dispensed with labels. And if we just said, what am I? I'm a Yirei Shamayim. That's what I am. Now, you might define a Yirei Shamayim different than I define a Yirei Shamayim. But part of the beauty in Yiddishkeit is you don't have to choose. So if you want to be a little Lubavitch and a little Breslov and a little Litvak, don't be a little Litvak, right? But you want to be a little this, a little that, and you want to take a little bit of everything with you. It's fantastic. Ruchnius can be a challenge. And you can take a little bit of a spiritual buffet, and you can take a little bit of everything. So we'll say, listen, the Piagetz says, the Rebbe says, the ladder is the exact opposite. What does the ladder represent? A ladder represents immediate ascension. Immediate ascension. Because, and I guess the Rebbe's logic is like this, right? What happens with the ladder? It's fascinating, right? Where do you put the base of the ladder? In location A. And where do you put the top of the ladder? Location B. The ladder is the bridge. The ladder is the thing, the one thing that can get you right from point A to point B. And the Rebbe says if you climb it quickly enough, it could be immediate ascension. Isn't this incredible? Slabavitcher Rebbe says ladder represents stage incremental ascension. And the Piagetz says the ladder represents immediate ascension. So look at the Piagetz says. This is incredible. As much as it's true that a person has to be able to take an incremental and stage approach to Ruchnius, the Piagetz posits, everybody has to have something in their back pocket that's like a spiritual adrenaline boost. Like, what's the thing? Like somewhere they give a person like an adrenaline shot. Adrenaline shot, right? A person says, so what happens? A person is having, you give them a shot of adrenaline, and like that one little shot, it shocks everything into, again, I was going to say wokeness, but once again, not good, right? Into being awake, right? So a person, so suddenly again, with that one little shot, a person is mamish on. The Piagetz says that a person has to have a spiritual ladder. You have to have that thing, that break in case of emergency. That if I feel that I am tumbling downward and it's not going good, What's happening in my life right in front of me right now is taking me down a path that I don't want to go on. But here's the problem, Bosai. Like many of us, we have this chus learn Gemara every day. Gemara is great. But if you want Gemara to influence your soul, what do you need? Chazar is good. What do you need? You need to show up. Right? And when do you have to show up? Every single day. Right? You stroll into daf 10 minutes late, every other day, every third Tuesday, every this. Okay, you can listen to it in the car. You can listen. It's not going to have the same effect. It's just not. So much of Ruchni, certain things, the effect that they have is through consistency. So when that's why again, one of the first questions we're asked after 120 is Kavata itim la Torah. Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't ask if you learned Torah. Rather, what does he say? Did you set times for Torah? Who cares if I set times? What does it matter if I'm on the train, I'm on the boat, I'm on the car, I'm on the treadmill? What does it make a difference? As long as I learn, that's the ikar. No, it's not true. Learning by itself is not the ikar. A kvius is the ikar. Because there are certain things in Ruchnius that only work through, or I should say not only work, but that work best through consistency. Torah is one of those things. Torah, every single time a yid learns one letter of Torah, it changes you. But if you want the full effect of Torah, that's consistency day in and day out. But the Rebbe says there are other things that are like the adrenaline shot. Other things that when you're going down that downward, so for example, if you're having a really difficult day, you're having a downward spiral in life, and you open up your Gemara, it may or may not help. This is important to understand, right? Because it depends on your relationship with Torah also, right? In other words, it could very well be that opening up that Blat Gemara will pull you right back up, but it's also possible that it won't. It's possible. Right? People relate to Torah in different ways. So the Rebbe says everybody has to have their sulam. Everybody has to have their ladder. That's the break in case of emergency. That's that thing when I'm descending into the abyss of spiritual ruin. what is the thing that I could rip open? What is the thing that I could activate that pulls me right back up? And the Rebbe says, it's so beautiful. He says, Ha'adam tzarach lasos sulam lalos aideim lepamim hashamayma. Hanigun hu echa me'asulamos. The Rebbe says, one of the most powerful things is a nigun, is a song. The power of a nigun, says the Piazetzna, is the ability to pull you out of the abyss. And it's instantaneous. We'll say, we know this because we've lived this. There are times, we spoke on this so many times before in the Piazetzna as well, there are times where a nigun opens up and accesses a part of your neshama that you never even knew that you had before. You know, I had this, you know, by Hadlok at home takes a long time. And so part of it is we go through Halom. Baruch Hashem, it's really very beautiful and really very meaningful. And I don't know what it was, but this year, every time, Ki chilatzta nafshi mimavas es eini miyindima hava sura vavagli miyachi. David HaMelech says it's Ki chilatzta nafshi mimavas. You've plucked me out of the clutches of death. Ki chilatzta nafshi mimavas as eini min dima. You dry my eyes from tears. Es ragli midachi. My feet from obliteration. And there's something, the words and the nigun, and it takes you just to a different place. It's the sulam. It's the ladder. So the Rebbe says, the Rebbe wants to suggest that a sulam that all of us could use is shira, is nigun. There's something about, and it's, again, it touches a piece of us that sometimes even the most beautiful piece of Torah, right? And again, obviously people are also wired differently, right? For some people, nigun doesn't do that much for them. Right? It might, and for some people it might be the vart that mamish lifts them up, or the idea, or the lumdus. So again, like we always say, the Piazetzna is never putting forward that this is the way. He's just outlining a way, and that the power of nigun is the ability to be that sulam, to be that ladder that catapults you immediately upward. But I will say, but watch this. He says, "Ubefrat kishemerananim achar simcha shal mitzvah ubelev nishbar." But the Rebbe says, when does a nigun work best? This is incredible. A nigun works best after you've performed the mitzvah. After you perform the mitzvah, because think about it, essentially what the Rebbe is saying is like this: when a person performs a mitzvah, so then they're already in a spiritually receptive state. I've already done something good. So after I've performed the mitzvah, ubelev nishbar, and with a broken heart. So the Rebbe says, when you put all of this together, I have the simcha of a mitzvah and a broken heart. Now, I was saying, see, the world looks at that statement and they're going to say it's inherently contradictory. But a Yid looks at that statement and says, that's my life. That's my life. Constantly in this twinned state of simcha shal mitzvah. I'm so besimcha because I'm a Yid. I'm so besimcha because I have Torah. I'm so besimcha because I have a relationship with Baruch Hu. But I'm so brokenhearted. And I'm brokenhearted over so many different things. I'm brokenhearted because of the difficulties and challenges of my people. I'm brokenhearted because of my own failures. I'm brokenhearted because of my unrealized dreams. I'm brokenhearted because of my underperformance. I'm brokenhearted because of the things that just didn't go my way. All different things. And the Rebbe says, if you have this perfect balance between, on one hand, simcha shal mitzvah, so do a mitzvah, put yourself in a construct of holiness, allow yourself to feel your personal brokenness, then insert the nigun, insert that stirring song, that stirring melody, and the Rebbe says, that's your sulam. That's your ladder that catapults you immediately to Shamayim. And with that one nigun, but again, it's not the nigun by itself. It's the nigun with the simcha shal mitzvah, the leiv nishbar. You put all of that together, and a person is able to catapult themselves to the highest of the high. And the Rebbe then goes on. Both say this is incredible. He says, B'chol Adam, yesh chelik mi'olam hanigun. And I will say, you might say to yourself, okay, this is very nice. Maybe if like you're a musical person, right? You're a musical person, but I don't know, I'm not a musical person. A person could say, or I'm tone deaf, right? So maybe my service to Klal Yisrael is not to sing. So the Rebbe says something very important. The Rebbe says every single person has a chelek from the Olam HaNigun. And I will say, this is incredible. So, by the way, I think sometimes you'll find this. Sometimes the most stirring Baalei Tefillah do not have to be the ones with the most beautiful voices. Rabbi Shlomo did not have a beautiful voice. Just didn't have a beautiful voice. But no one has impacted Yidden through Nigina like Rabbi Shlomo. Because it's not the voice. It's the hearts. It's the heart. It's the heart that does it. I shouldn't say Rabbi Shlomo had a beautiful voice. I'm saying, but when you think about voices, it's not like people say, "Oh, that voice." But the nigunim came from such a makam of kedusha. The nigunim came from like kodesh kadoshim. So you don't have to have the best voice. Not the best voice. That's why the Rebbe says every person has a chelik in the olam hanigun. It's not the pshat that the chazon and the Baalei Tefillah, they have the nigina. The rest of us are just the followers. Not true. Not true. Every single yid has a chelik in the olam hanigun, which I will say means according to the Piyashatz now. He says that what does that mean? Every person has a chelik. Every person has the ability to find their nigun sulam, right? To find their nigun ladder. To find what is your nigun, what is your break in case of emergency? What is that thing? What is that nigun that you have? That when you are down and out, that when you are going through difficulties in life, and again, feel like you are about to fall off the edge of the spiritual cliff, what's the nigun that pulls you back? What's the thing that lifts you up? What's your ladder? And the Rebbe says everyone has to have one. Everyone has to have one. You're musical, you're not musical, it's irrelevant. Everyone has to have one. Look what he says. It's so beautiful. Lachein, be'ez shemenagnim nigun tzarich la'orer chelek me'olam hanigun asher bo. And that's why I will say it's very important. It's very important. This is why you have to make sure that you have your nigun. Find your inner nigun. Not someone else's nigun. Not someone else's nigun. Your nigun. What's your song? What's your nigun that pulls you up? He goes on. He says, "Ve'im lav rak shemenagin shechiber achal bilvad." But again, if you're using someone else's nigun, right? If you're using someone else's song, someone else's ladder, look what he writes. This is incredible. He says, "Harizeh kemo mayim shepalat chavero umas." It's like drinking someone else's water after they put it in their mouth and spit it out. Okay.
Tonight's sponsor,
right? He's trying to make a point of it, I will say. I will say, I just want to tell you what's happening over here. What's happening over here is so incredibly important. What the Rebbe is highlighting, but we'll plug it in here in just a second. But the Rebbe is highlighting, Rebbe say, is Ruchnius is highly individualized. See, and this is the great anomaly of Yiddishkeit. We all have the same 630 mitzvahs. We all have the same Shulchan Aruch. We all have the same Hilchos Shabbos, right? We all have the same Shas. We all have the same thing. Yet each of us is obligated to create our own relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rav Shlomo Hirsch brings down, and he says, we begin Shemona Esrei with Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. We refer to Hashem as the God of Avram, the God of Yitzchak, the God of Yaakov. Avos. Why do we begin Shemona Esrei with the bracha of Avos? What's the classic answer? The classic answer is that at the end of the day, Shemona Esrei is really a supplicative prayer. I'm asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for stuff. That's really what it is. So really what I'm saying is, Yibano Shalom, I may not have the requisite merit for you to give me what it is that I'm asking for. So in the event that I don't have the requisite merit, I'm asking you to tap into the merits of the Avos and the Ma'os and previous generations. Now Hirsch says that's not it. I mean, that is it. But there's also something additional. He says so beautifully. He says, what's one of the hardest things about davening in general? One of the hardest things. So, like, it's staged. It's not. What's the word? Spontaneous. Thank you. It's not spontaneous, right? Remember again. We'll say, how did tefillah used to be? Oh, that wasn't good English, but right. Historically, what was tefillah like? That I remember examining tefillah. It used to be before Anshe Knesset Hagadola went ahead and organized davening as we have it. What would happen? You would daven, and what would you daven? Whatever you needed. Whatever you needed, right? You wanted to daven in the morning, you wanted to daven in the evening. Right? Chazal came along after the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash during Babylonian exile, where people were no longer proficient in any one language because they weren't proficient in Hebrew because they were in exile. They weren't proficient in Babylonian because we were strangers in a strange land. So people had difficulty verbally expressing themselves, and tefillah became frustrating. Chazal went ahead and created a siddur, or created parts of the siddur, organized prayer. So one of the most difficult things is one second, like, we're all davening to Hashem, but yeah, you're all using the same words. So Rav Sham Shafar says something amazing. He says, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were father, son, and grandson. Right? And in many respects, they shared many similarities. But they were also dramatically different from one another. Avram was chesed. Yitzchak was din. Yaakov was tiferes. Right? Or Yitzchak was gvura. Yaakov, tiferes or ms. So what's incredible is, how do we begin Shemona Esrei? By highlighting this idea that even though we're all going to say the same words, we each have a unique and distinct relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's the beauty of Yiddishkeit. You know where Yiddishkeit becomes stifling? Do you know it becomes stifling? When you do it wrong, right? And how do you do Yiddishkeit wrong? When you come with the mindset that everyone has to be the same. And everyone has to dress the same, and everyone has to do the same, and everyone has to act the same, and everyone has to talk the same. And everyone, when you create just, this is the mold, and you stifle individuality, see, it's incredible. People think that the essence of Yiddishkeit is conformity. So Yiddishkeit is conformity with individuality. What does that mean? It's conformity because you can't pick and choose the mitzvos you want to do. Right? If you're a Yid, then you're obligated in everything. And that's it. There's no exceptions. It doesn't matter what your hashkafa is. It doesn't matter what isms you have. There's a halacha. There's a shulchan aruch. You could be honest and say, I don't do certain things. Okay, that's between you and God. But you can't create an alternative hashkafa that says that these halachas don't apply. Or you can't create an alternative movement that says this doesn't apply. There's one set of halachas. None of us do everything. That's between me and God. That's between you and God. That's no one else's business. So there's conformity to a system. But within that system, there's so much room for individuality. Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. Everybody's got to find their own path within the conformity. Everybody's got to find their path within the very, very, very big box that we call Yiddishkeit. So the Rebbe says something amazing. The Rebbe says each of us have an obligation to find their own niggin. To find their own niggin. And I can't take your niggin, and you can't take my niggin. Now, could we like the same niggin? Could we go ahead and maybe be inspired by the same thing? Sure. But at the end of the day, the inspiration is different. I will say, by the way, that's why I always find this interesting. I have this machlokes a lot of times with our musical chavra over here, that to me, it's always fascinating, some of the nigunim that people like and that inspires them. To me, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like, it's like a kli rake, like it's just like an empty vessel. It's notes, but it's not. But yet you see people like, they're all into it. And again, I get a lot of flack because the truth is, everything that inspires me is at least how old? I don't know, 20 years old, 10 years old, 10 years old. 10 years old, right? So it's incredible to see, right? It's different things do different things for different people. And that's the avoda, to find your own niggin. And I will say, what this means just on a deeper level is, don't try to replicate someone else's ruchnius. Forge your own path. Do your own thing. Create your own relationship. Because what happens, I will say, this is maisim b'chol yom, where people feel a need to spiritually fit in. Now, on one hand, sometimes that need for conformity or that peer pressure could be positive, right? If your chaverim are going to the daf and you're the only guy, I'm avoiding eye contact. You're the only guy not going to daf. Yeah, get it together. Be a big boy, wake up early and let's go. Let's do this. Like, come on, right? Or at the end of the day, all of your friends so there is a positive peer pressure that can come out with certain things. But in terms of creation of a spiritual identity, don't copy someone else. Because you know what happens if you copy someone else? It's mamish like drinking their backwash. I know. By the way, crazy. Out of all the mashalim to make. So I'll say none of us would ever imagine taking water that someone else spit out and lapping that up. No one would ever imagine that. But yet, says the Piazetzna, if you go ahead and you just try to mimic someone else's ladder and you don't try to find your own, that's not ruchnius. That's spiritual copycatting. And the truth is, it's not going to work. You have to find your own sulam. So Rabbi say, what a profound yisod. So again, who's right? Who's right? The Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Piazetzna. Who's right? They're both right. They're both right because the truth is they both serve different roles. At the end of the day, the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, is really the proper approach for everyday living. Spiritual growth is stage by stage, step by step, rung by rung, and incremental. That's the way it works. That's the way it has to work if you want it to really, if you really, really want to retain it. But at the same time, the Piazetzna, the Rebbe, is so right. The Rebbe is, because they all say, all of us have those moments where I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm falling off. I'm about to lose my footing in a dramatic way. And I need the adrenaline. I need something quick and fast and effective to pull me back. I need that ladder. That's my adrenaline. That's my nigun. That says the Rebbe. So again, takeaway message number one is that every Yid has to create for himself a sulam, a ladder for instantaneous spirituality. Now again, the Rebbe suggests that it's the nigun, but you can find, maybe for someone else, it's a sefer, particular sefer that I learn, when I'm just down and out. Or maybe it's a friend that I call. So it doesn't have to be the nigun, but everybody has to have the sulam. Everyone has to have their ladder, but the Rebbe suggests that perhaps the most effective ladder we could create at the end of the day is truly a beautiful nigun that stirs the soul. All right, let's begin the next piece. We have a few minutes? Yeah. 7 minutes, plenty of time. All right, let's say Lamed Ches. We're skipping Lamed Zayin for now. We're going to come back to Lamed Zayin. We're going to Lamed Ches. Here we go. I will say, just so you understand, this is, because the reason why I find this so incredible, anyone who's ever had like a Rebbe growing up knows that like sometimes the most impactful moments is just like when you have like a little bit of time with your Rebbe, it's like a small group, and you're just schmoozing about life. It's not a shiur, it's not like you're not learning it, just schmoozing about life. So understand, every Thursday night, every Erev Shabbos, when we come here, so again, the Rebbe schmoozes with us about life. That's what Tzav is. It's just a schmooze about life. If you notice again, there's no sources over here. There's no Ma'ir Makomos, right? There's no Ayin, Gimar, Tzadik Beis. There's none of that. This is just the Piazetzna Mamish engaging us in a life shmooze. Lamed Ches. Let's at least begin this. So I'll say, this is great. Here, in Lamed Ches, what the Rebbe says is as follows. Let's just translate. He says, if in life you have, what's a pitgam? What's pisgamim? Phrases, right? Phrases, sayings or mantras. If you have sayings or phrases, uklalim ba'avoda. So what the Rebbe is describing over here is, do you have sayings, phrases, or mantras in life? Right? The Rebbe says, mutav, good. In other words, a person has to have a mantra. What is my mantra in life? What is my saying? What is like the guiding light principle through which I live my life? What's my mantra? The Rebbe says if you have one, or by the way, it doesn't have to be one. It could be multiple ones. Good. Ve'imlav, but if you don't, osu she'ein atosh shokes atzmacha v'eschayecha b'torah u'musar. Let's listen to this. If you don't have a mantra in life, then what does that show? Wow. Then what does that show? That you're clearly not embedded in a life of Torah. Because if you don't have a mantra, then what are you working towards? Right? If you don't have a mantra, then what do you stand for? If you don't have a mantra, then how are you measuring your life success? So it's clear that you're not living a life of Torah. Or second possibility, sha'ata sandal. Or the other possibility is that you're just a shoe. The Rebbe's on fire tonight. I'm just saying, mamish on fire. Backwash and shoes, right? Listen, what the Rebbe's saying is that what is a human being? What is a yid without a mantra? Right? What is a yid without a life mantra? What is a yid without a guiding life principle? So one of two things are broken. Either A, so again, I'm just not steeped enough in a life of Torah. Or what does it mean when the Rebbe says that I'm a sandal, that I'm a shoe? What does that mean? He says, Kilomar, below tzur la'atzmecha. I have no self-definition. I have no sense of self. And I will say, by the way, I just want to point out, it's very easy to go through life like that. Right? People go through life like this all the time, where they just live. And by the way, I'm talking about like good people who lead are leading nice, probably content, or they at least think content and happy lives, right? What do they do? So when they're young, they go to school. And then when they finish school, what do? They get a job. Sometimes somewhere they get married, they have a family, they go to work, right, come back home, eat dinner, read the paper, watch Netflix, go back to sleep, right? Wake up the next morning, work, repeat that for 40 years, then retire, get a place in Boca, right? And just do the same thing, for the next 40 years. And by the way, it's wonderful, it's nice, and great, and there are things accomplished along the way, but it's not a mission-driven life. The Rebbe says a successful life is a mission-driven life. And a mission-driven life has to have a mission statement. Right? If there's no mission statement, if there's no mantra, then what are you doing? A mission-driven life, says the Rebbe, is a life with a mantra, a life with a mission. Without that, either I'm not really working towards something bigger, which I will say, you understand, most people are not working towards something bigger. What are most people doing? Surviving. And by the way, for many of us, survival is not so budget, right? Survival takes up a lot of time and a lot of energy, but most people are just focusing on surviving, or maybe small little goals, like earning a little more, acquiring a little bit more, or this, that. But most people are not living mission-driven lives. And the Rebbe says, just it's important to understand, if my life is not mission-driven, if it's not a mantra, there's something broken. There's something missing. My avodah is to identify the absence, the void, and to try to fill it. So we'll stop over here for tonight. Again, I'll lift a little bit on a cliffhanger. We're starting this. So this will be Emirat Hashem. This will be our. We're going to spend the next 2 weeks on this Emirat Hashem. We have 2 more shiurim Emirat. 2 more shiurim here before our Chanukah Habayis. So Emirat Hashem, we're going to maximize this space Emirat Hashem. I'm going to say tremendous shkoyach, Ma'ariv in the shul. A lot more Piaget's in the house.